This world is changing quickly, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We have so many strange stories that have come out of the last 48 hours. We have, of course, a pastor getting kicked out of a men's conference for merely pointing out something that's completely surprising that was happening there. You just won't even believe it. We'll get into that in a minute here. It's on par with the lady punting the Bible across the church. It's like literally that level. And he condemned this act that happened in the men's conference, and then they booted him out. We'll get into that. Also, we have here Bishop Mar Mari Emmanuel and what happened to him about 48 hours ago. While he was conducting his service, a young man, a teenager, had walked into the church and slowly proceeded to the front until he had gotten pretty close to him, and then he bolted as fast as he could, of course, towards him, and apparently he failed in his mission because he was trying to take him, of course, out. And apparently what he was using, the blade didn't work right. It didn't open properly, and apparently he also might have taken off his own, fingers in the process, according to what I'm reading here. But thankfully it didn't open correctly, although it does appear that Bishop Mar Mari Emmanuel still went to the hospital, and actually a couple other people around him were affected, or I think they might have also had something happen to them as well. But the good news is he's fine. Now, there's a lot of rumors and things going on, and actually what's interesting is even some of the major news outlets are not even getting it right in some respects. Of course, they're trying to report a story as quickly as they can. It comes out, but a lot of them thought that obviously that the thing successfully opened, and he was really, of course, injured. But actually, in reality, from what I understand, it wasn't as bad. It was far better than it could have been. Okay, now, so they failed in their mission. But what's really curious is that they had actually told him 2 weeks ago that this was going to happen. And he even responded to it in a message where he was told he only had 2 weeks, of course, to live. And he responded maybe in a way they didn't expect, because he said he was actually excited. Now, of course, maybe he didn't understand. Well, maybe he did understand, but maybe he didn't understand fully what they meant by that. He was looking at it as like, hey, I get to go back. I get to go to heaven. I don't have to deal with this world anymore. I mean, that's probably what essentially it sounded like he was saying in his message. Of course, he says everything is of the Lord's capable hands. And I mean, he was in good spirits. Even after this all occurred, he was in good spirits. He actually went over and prayed for the guy after this all occurred. Believe it or not. Now, of course, like I said, some of these news outlets were saying that, I think this isn't fully true. I think it did not fully come out properly. So it wasn't nearly what it would have been. I can show you a picture of what I'm referring to. Where is it at? I got it around here somewhere. Here it is. So this is after the fact. The guy's looking at his hand, is like, the thing didn't work right. Like, whoops, it didn't even open at the time when he was doing it. But apparently he might have taken off his 3 fingers, because that's according to a testimony of someone who was actually there, that sent a message to this man. Now, he's holding up his phone, what she wrote to him, and that he may have lost, of course, 3 fingers in the process of trying to do this. So he also affected himself. I mean, more so than obviously this was a protection. This was divine protection here, folks. This is kind of how I look at it. And of course, also, this is something that happened right after right after this occurred. This is what the man said to Bishop Mar Mari. If you didn't curse my, of course, prophet, I wouldn't have come here. So this was, of course, directly religious in nature, folks. And like I said, we're going to get into a number of other stories. Actually, we're going to get into this one And it's a pastor that I'm not even a fan of this pastor because I'm not talking about Bishop Mar Mari here, but I'm talking about Mark Driscoll. I've actually made videos about Mark Driscoll in the past. And we'll actually come back to Bishop Mar Mari in a minute here because I actually have more to show you. Something that he said that he posted after the fact, something that Andrew, Tate said, and much more. But I wanted to get into this other story from this, what happened to Mark Driscoll, how he got kicked out of a men's conference, and you ain't gonna believe why. Absolutely ridiculous. We'll get into that in this video as well. First of all, I got to mention food supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. You can get 1 week's worth for $49. They also have the Grid Doctor solar generator system for $447. I have something very similar to this. They also have other options available. You can get 3 months for $597, I think it is. Link is in the description. Go check it out. Also, this book here, The Lost Ways, How Your Great-Great-Grandfather Lived Without Electricity, How to Build a Cellar, Do Things Around the House Like They Did in the Old Days, hundreds of pages illustrated. You're going to definitely want to get that. You need it before something happens, not after, because it's not going to be easy to buy after the fact. Get the printed version. It's like $37 plus shipping. And let's get back to the video. Let's talk a little bit about this other story real quick, and then we'll come back to the Bishop Mar Mari. Now, this happened at a men's conference around the exact same time, about 48 hours ago. Celebrity pastor calls out the church for having this particular event at the intro of the men's conference. This guy's a sword swallower, but I mean, if it was just him swallowing a sword, I think it would be not a problem. That's not really what the problem was. The problem was that he took his jacket off and was up on a pole. Okay, and some people just looked a little GAY, folks. And of course, the Mark Driscoll, the pastor, was calling this out. He said he was praying all night from 1 a.m. onward. And he was saying, we got to call out what happened at the beginning of this men's conference. This is not what I would call acceptable. And he's talking about this and calling it out. And apparently the lead pastor over this men's conference told him he was done. You're done. You're not talking anymore. So then he was booted from the men's conference. And of course, like I said, look, you can see it right here. He's like walking around it, like, and then you understand what I'm getting at. You understand what I mean? It's not just swallowing a sword. Okay. Okay. There's more going on here, as you can see. And, maybe they just made a mistake, or maybe this was intentional. I don't know. It's hard to tell anymore. Was this a mistake? Was this intentional? I mean, we had a woman pastor, like not even a month ago, like a week ago, punt a Bible across the church like that was normal to celebrate Super Bowl Sunday. Really? Wow. This is how we treat the Word of God now? We just punt it across the room? Apparently, that's how some people are. And there's another guy who was putting syrup on it. And then he also brought a trampoline in, and he was like getting his hair cut one time. He's like doing all this. Like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be a pastor. You're pouring syrup on the good book. You're like jumping on a trampoline and getting your hair cut while talking to people. This doesn't make any sense. Okay. And of course, that's not the only, that was the first intro event into the men's conference. They also had apparently monster trucks as well. I think the point, what they were trying to do with this intro is they're like, we're men. Look, we like monster trucks and sword swallowing. But I think it, you know what I mean? Like, this is supposed to be a Christian men's conference. Like, I can understand a little bit of this. Like, okay, monster truck. Okay, cool. Wow. I like watching monster trucks. I used to watch them when I was younger. I remember going there with my dad when I was younger. I like monster trucks, man. But Gravedigger, for example, that's a good monster truck. I mean, yeah, Bigfoot, you know what I mean? Monster truck, but this, I mean, you can understand that a little bit, but like the sword swallowing guy with no jacket and of course the pole. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. And of course, it seems like they're more into entertainment than actually discipling. You know what I mean? Of course, the crowd booed when he was, kicked off the stage and booted out of the auditorium, whatever this is. This is a massive building. This conference, I mean, some of these mega churches are really getting like, what's going on here, folks? And honestly, I do think I know what is going on here a little bit. And I talked about this during the eclipse. A lot of people thought, well, nothing happened during the eclipse. Actually, I do think it happened just like it was supposed to. It's exactly what I said would happen. And I said that it would be a marker for 40 days. You have 40 days. I was like, look, it went through 8 Ninevehs. When Jonah went to Nineveh, there was an eclipse. So we have 7 years. We were given 7 years, and now we have 40 days. So just like Nineveh had 40 days, we got 40 days. And we need to change our ways. Otherwise, the city will be, gone. So this is what I think is being said with that eclipse, is that you got 40 days, and you're going to be out. Some of these people, these corrupt, of course, people, and I'm thinking it's in charge of these churches, in charge of the GOV, everywhere, are going to be out. There's going to be things happening. Things going to be let to light, if you understand what I mean. Like T.D. Jakes with P. Diddy, that's a good example. Or perhaps this one right here, where you have a sword-swallowing guy, doesn't exactly look normal, around, of course, a pole. Really? I mean, what does that look like, folks? You got stuff like that going on as well. And you got punting of Bibles. You got that as well going on. For Super Bowl Sunday. What a great idea. I mean, seriously, give me a break. I'm being sarcastic, of course. But, I mean, you see all this stuff going on. And here's actually a guy react. I thought it was kind of funny how he reacted.
Listen, it's like some days you wake up and you can't even believe that you're living in reality. And like so many of
this is what I felt like for the last 4 or 5 years. Every day I wake up, I'm like, is this real? What's going on? Why is our world upside down? Every day is upside down. Something new. It just doesn't make any sense. Happens every day now. And here's yet the latest example. But getting back to the Bishop Mar Mari Emmanuel guy who went viral. I mean, he started going viral like a few months ago, right? I started seeing him pop up in my feed all the time. And I mean, he's obviously making waves. He went on PBD, Patrick Bet David's, new show, and was talking about all these, how America needs to change and stuff, which is perfect. I mean, that goes right along with the whole Jonah thing, right? It's perfect. And of course, someone tries to stop him from speaking. That's exactly what happened. Of course, the bishop, after this all occurred, on that day, this young guy walked right through the aisle, right up to him. What did he do right after the fact? He went up to him and prayed over him and forgave him and showed him love. This is the right way to do it, folks. And of course, even Andrew Tate has been impressed by all this. He's really, of course, he's not of the same faith as you probably already know, but his brother is. His brother's Orthodox Christian, I think. But he, of course, is Muslim. And he's talking about this and said he says, finally, we're seeing the church, of course, rise, up and or speaking and or showing some anger over what's going on. And of course, there was a crowd outside when this all occurred where the guy was still in the church. Apparently, the guy that, the teenager that went, of course, after the bishop was still in the church, and they were all demanding that he be brought out. And so we're seeing people really starting to get sick of what's going on, folks. You know what I mean? Even Andrew here is getting animated and is happy to see this. It's really interesting seeing how he's been recently, particularly with the whole Christ is, King thing that happened as well. He was also speaking up positively about that as well. So, he was actually also mentioning stuff exactly like what we see with this, that was going on at this men's conference. He said, you finally are getting sick of things like this. People are finally getting sick of it. And we don't want to see any more of this. We want things to go the right way. And we don't need monster trucks. Okay. We need a little bit more discipling, not monster trucks. I mean, I like monster trucks. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I like monster trucks. I haven't watched them in a long time, but I used to watch them. I think I even for a little while watched them back like 7 years ago or something for a little while. I have things I'm into as well, folks. I don't just sit here and talk about the stuff you see here on YouTube. I always talk about. I mean, I'm into arm wrestling a little bit. I watch videos on that, and strongman, all that kind of stuff. I'm into that stuff a little bit as well. I used to be into UFC and things. But yeah, man, I mean, it's good to see this stuff finally where people are standing, of course, up and saying things, folks. I really hope that it continues this direction and we start seeing some real change in the church. I'm kind of wondering what some of you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.